The mining ship Stellar Dawn drifted quietly through the asteroid field, its massive drilling arms working slowly on a rocky surface. Captain Veltar watched the operation from his command chair, his blue-scaled hands resting on the controls. The Catherian crew had been working this field for 3 weeks now, and they were almost done collecting the rare metals their homeworld needed. "Captain, we have a problem with the main communication array," reported Engineer Zekmuth from his station. His voice carried the worried tone that all Catherians used when something went wrong. "The solar storm from yesterday damaged more circuits than we thought." Veltar's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep concern among his people. "Can you fix it?" "I'm trying, sir, but the damage is spread through multiple systems. The backup transmitter is also showing faults." Zekmuth's clawed fingers moved quickly over his console. "I might be able to get something working, but it won't be clean." The captain nodded and returned his attention to the mining operation. The Catherians were peaceful by nature, spending most of their time mining asteroids and trading with other species. They had no military ships and no weapons beyond what was needed to break apart rocks. Their entire culture was built around avoiding conflict and helping others. 20 minutes later, Zekmuth called out again. "Captain, I think I have communications back online, but the signal is very weak and distorted. Should I test it?" "Yes, send a standard status report to the nearest relay station," Veltar replied. "Let them know we're on schedule and will be heading home in 2 days." Zekmuth activated the transmitter and began sending the message. Unknown to him, the damaged circuits were scrambling the signal badly. What should have been a simple status report was being twisted into something else entirely. The words "mining operation complete" became "military operation complete." The phrase "returning home peacefully" turned into "returning home with weapons." The garbled message shot out into space, bouncing off communication satellites and reaching dozens of different species across the sector. Each relay station that received it tried to clean up the signal, but the damage was too severe. Instead of fixing it, they were making it worse. 3 light years away, Fleet Commander Krex of the Zephyrian Empire was reviewing intelligence reports when his communications officer brought him the intercepted message. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy for their aggressive expansion and their habit of attacking first and asking questions later. "Sir, we've intercepted what appears to be a military communication from Catherian space," the officer reported. "They're claiming to have completed some kind of operation and are talking about weapons." Krex's reptilian features twisted into a snarl. "The Catherians? Those weak miners? They don't have weapons. That's what makes this so concerning, sir. If they're suddenly talking about military operations and weapons, they might be planning something against us. The message is badly damaged, but we can make out references to targets eliminated and mission successful." The fleet commander stood up from his command chair, his powerful frame casting a shadow across the bridge. "How many ships do we have?" "In the sector? 3 battlecruisers, sir. The Talon's Edge, the Bloodstrike, and the Iron Fang, all fully armed and ready for combat." Krex made his decision quickly, as he always did. "Signal all 3 ships. We're moving to investigate this Catherian threat immediately. If they're planning something against the Empire, we'll stop it before it starts." Meanwhile, the same damaged signal was being picked up by other species throughout the sector. The Galactic Council's monitoring station recorded it, but filed it away as a routine mining report. The automated systems couldn't make sense of the garbled transmission, so they marked it as low priority. However, one species was paying closer attention. The human patrol ship USS Liberty was conducting routine border monitoring when Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison noticed the signal during his communications review. "That's odd," he said to his communications officer, Petty Officer Lisa Grant. "This signal from the Epsilon sector looks like it's been damaged. Can you clean it up?" Lisa worked on the signal for several minutes, running it through the ship's advanced computers. "Sir, I think this might be a distress call. The signal is badly corrupted, but I'm seeing patterns that match emergency protocols." Jake leaned forward. In his chair. "From who?" "The source appears to be Cytherians, sir. You know, those peaceful miners we met last year during the trade negotiations. They were very friendly." The human officer frowned. "If the Cytherians are sending distress signals, something's wrong. They're not the type to cause trouble or ask for help unless they really need it." Jake made his decision. "Signal Admiral Hayes at Sector Command. Tell her we've intercepted what appears to be a Cytherian distress call and request permission to investigate." The message reached Admiral Lisa Hayes at the human naval base on the edge of the sector. She was a veteran officer who had spent 30 years in space, and she had learned to trust her instincts about these things. The humans had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years, but they had already gained a reputation for being helpful and reliable. "Grant permission for USS Liberty to investigate," she ordered her aide, "and put the Third Fleet on standby alert. If our people are walking into trouble, I want backup ready." Back on the Stellar Dawn, Captain Veltar was completely unaware of the chaos his damaged communication system had created. His crew continued their mining work, looking forward to finishing their job and returning home to their families. They had no idea that 3 Zephyrian warships were racing toward them with weapons ready, or that human forces were also moving to investigate. The damaged signal continued to bounce through space, creating more confusion with each transmission. Some species interpreted it as a declaration of war, others as a trade dispute, and still others as a request for help. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the smallest mistake can have the biggest consequences. In the depths of space, forces were moving that would change everything. The Cytherians just wanted to mine their asteroids and go home. The Zephyrians wanted to eliminate a perceived threat. The humans wanted to help someone who might be in trouble. None of them knew that one wrong signal was about to bring down an entire human fleet from the Deathworld called Earth. The 3 Zephyrian warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the asteroid field like hungry predators. Fleet Commander Krex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Talon's Edge, watching the mining operation through his tactical display. The peaceful Cytherian vessel looked small and helpless compared to his massive battle cruisers. "Sir, the target is directly ahead," reported his weapons officer. "The Cytherian mining ship appears to be unarmed, but that could be a trick." Krex's yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. "They're very good at hiding their true nature. Remember, we intercepted communications about completed military operations and weapons. This innocent mining ship might be a trap. The truth was much simpler." Captain Veltar was directing his crew in the final stages of their mining work, completely unaware that 3 warships were approaching. His people were excited about finishing their job and going home. They had been in space for almost a month, and everyone was looking forward to seeing their families again. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings on the long-range sensors," reported Navigator Heldris from her station. 3 large objects approaching from the outer system. Veltar looked at the display and felt his blood turn cold. 3 military vessels were heading directly toward them, and they were not broadcasting any identification signals. "Try to contact them. Ask what they want." Heldris worked at her console for several minutes before shaking her head. "No response, sir. They're not answering any of our calls." "Are they pirates?" asked Engineer Zekmoth nervously. "I don't know," Veltar replied. "But prepare the escape pods just in case. If they want our cargo, they can have it. Nothing we're carrying is worth dying for." The Zephyrian ships moved into attack formation, their weapon systems powering up. Krex had convinced himself that this was a preemptive strike against a dangerous enemy. In his mind, the Cytherians were planning something evil, and he was protecting the galaxy by stopping them. All ships, prepare to engage, Krex ordered. Remember, they struck first with their military operations. We're just responding to their aggression. The first energy blasts hit the stellar dawn without warning. The peaceful mining ship had basic shields designed to protect against asteroid debris, not military weapons. The hull shook violently as the Zephyrian attack began, and emergency alarms started screaming throughout the ship. "Shields down to 60%, shouted Zekmuth over the noise. "We can't take much more of this." Captain Veltar activated the ship's general communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Captain Veltar of the Catherian mining vessel Stellar Dawn. We are unarmed civilians. We surrender. Please stop your attack." But the Zephyrians interpreted the surrender offer as a tactical trick. Krex had studied human military history and knew that weaker enemies sometimes pretended to surrender before launching surprise attacks. "They're trying to deceive us. Continue firing." The second wave of attacks was even more devastating. The Stellar Dawn's shields collapsed completely, and the ship began venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. The crew ran toward the escape pods as their ship died around them. "Everyone to the pods," Veltar ordered. "Abandon ship immediately." The small escape pods began launching from the dying mining ship, carrying the Catherian crew to safety. But the pods were old and slow, easy targets for the Zephyrian weapons. Several pods were hit and destroyed as they tried to reach the safety of the asteroid field. News of the attack spread quickly through the galaxy's communication networks. The automated monitoring systems recorded the battle and transmitted reports to news agencies and government offices throughout known space. But as the reports passed from one species to another, the facts became twisted and confused. The Altarian news network reported that Catherian military forces had launched a surprise attack on peaceful Zephyrian traders. The Centauri broadcasting system claimed that the Zephyrians had discovered a secret Catherian weapons factory and were destroying it. The Galactic Council received 17 different versions of the story, each more confusing than the last. One report was clear and accurate. The human patrol ship USS Liberty had been monitoring communications in the sector when the attack began. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison watched the battle unfold on his tactical display, and what he saw made him angry. "Those are civilian escape pods being fired on," he said to his crew. "The Zephyrians are shooting at unarmed refugees." Communications Officer Lisa Grant looked up from her station. "Sir, I'm receiving multiple distress signals from the Catherian survivors. They're requesting immediate assistance." Jake didn't hesitate. "Set course for the battle zone, maximum speed. Signal the Zephyrians and tell them to stop firing on civilian targets immediately." The USS Liberty was a small ship compared to the Zephyrian battlecruisers, but it was fast and well-armed. As it raced toward the battle, Jake sent a message to Admiral Hayes explaining the situation. "This is USS Liberty to Sector Command. We have confirmed that Zephyrian forces are attacking unarmed Catherian civilians. The mining vessel has been destroyed, and they're now targeting escape pods. We're moving to assist the survivors." Admiral Hayes received the message while reviewing intelligence reports about the confused situation in the Epsilon sector. Conflicting news reports had made it impossible to understand what was really happening. But Jake's message was clear and direct. "Signal all available ships in the sector," she ordered. "We have confirmed civilian casualties and need immediate response, and get me a direct line to the Galactic Council. They need to know what's really happening out there." The USS Liberty arrived at the battle zone just as the Zephyrians were preparing to destroy the last group of escape pods. Jake positioned his ship between the pods and the enemy vessels, activating all defensive systems. "Zephyrian vessels, this is the USS Liberty. You are firing on unarmed civilian targets. Cease your attack immediately. Fleet Commander Krex was surprised by the human intervention. Human ship, withdraw immediately. This is an internal matter between the Zephyrian Empire and Getherian terrorists. Negative, Jake replied firmly. We see no terrorists, only civilians in distress. You will stop firing on those escape pods. You have no authority here, human. Leave now or face the consequences. Jake looked at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Signal the Zephyrians one more time. Tell them that if they fire on those civilians again, we will consider it an act of war. The communication channel crackled with static before Krex's voice came through. You would risk war over a few alien miners? We would risk war to protect innocent lives, Jake answered. That's what makes us human. The Zephyrian ships opened fire on the USS Liberty, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. The human ship shook under the impact, but its shields held. Jake managed to send out one final message before his communications were jammed. Mayday, Mayday. This is USS Liberty. Human vessel under attack while protecting civilian evacuation. Zephyrian forces engaging. Request immediate assistance. The message raced through space toward human territory, carrying news that would change everything. The Zephyrians had just made the biggest mistake in their species' history. They had attacked a human ship while it was protecting innocent civilians, and now the entire human fleet was about to learn what had happened. The emergency message from USS Liberty reached Admiral Lisa Hayes at exactly 13:47 hours, Galactic Standard Time. She was in the middle of reviewing supply reports when her aide, Commander Rick Torres, burst into her office without knocking. Admiral, we have a priority distress call from Lieutenant Commander Morrison, Rick said, his face pale. The Liberty is under attack. Lisa stood up immediately and followed Rick to the communication center. The message played through the speakers. Jake Morrison's voice clear, despite the static from weapons fire in the background. Mayday, Mayday. This is USS Liberty. Human vessel under attack while protecting civilian evacuation. Zephyrian forces engaging. Request immediate assistance. Lisa closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders. She had been a naval officer for 30 years, and she knew what this meant. A human ship was under attack while protecting innocent civilians. There was only one possible response. Get me a direct line to all fleet commanders in the sector, she ordered. Priority Alpha authorization. Within minutes, the communication screen showed the faces of 6 different human admirals scattered across known space. Admiral Kate Sullivan of the 3rd Fleet was the first to speak. Lisa, we received the alert. What's the situation? One of our patrol ships is under attack while protecting civilian refugees, Lisa replied. The Zephyrians have opened fire on the Liberty after it moved to stop them from shooting at escape pods. Admiral Tom Brady of the 7th Fleet leaned forward. How many enemy ships? 3 battle cruisers against 1 patrol vessel, Lisa answered. Jake Morrison is a good captain, but he's badly outnumbered. The third face on the screen belonged to Admiral Sam Parker, commander of the Advanced Warfare Division. His experimental ships were stationed near the edge of human space, but his reputation for quick thinking was known throughout the fleet. What are our orders? Sam asked simply. Lisa looked at each commander in turn. This is now a rescue operation with hostile interference. Full deployment authorized. I want every available ship moving toward the Epsilon sector within the hour. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Admiral Sullivan's 3rd Fleet had just finished war games near the Centauri sector and was already in formation. 3rd Fleet acknowledging. 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and 48 escort vessels. We can be there in 18 hours. Admiral Brady nodded. Seventh Fleet responding. We're further out, but we'll be there in 36 hours. 24 ships total, specialized for rapid strike operations. Admiral Parker smiled grimly. Advanced Warfare Division confirming. 6 experimental vessels with prototype weapons. Systems will arrive in 42 hours. One by one, the other fleet commanders reported their status. Admiral Carroll Davis of the Fifth Fleet was patrolling the outer rim, but immediately changed course. Admiral Mike Johnson of the Second Fleet was escorting a supply convoy, but left them under destroyer escort and headed for the battle zone. What the galactic community didn't understand was that humanity had spent 50 years preparing for exactly this situation. Every human ship in space could receive emergency deployment orders and respond within hours. Every captain had trained for rapid response to anywhere in known space. The human military doctrine was simple but effective. When one of their own was in danger, especially while protecting innocent lives, the entire fleet would respond with overwhelming force. It didn't matter if it was one ship or 100 ships under attack. The response would be the same. Admiral Hayes opened a channel to Earth Command. This is Admiral Hayes requesting confirmation of full deployment authorization. The response came back within minutes from General Susan Clark, the highest-ranking military officer in human space. Authorization confirmed. Rules of engagement are defensive protection of civilians and human vessels. Use whatever force is necessary. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was receiving increasingly frantic reports about human fleet movements throughout the sector. Ambassador John Phillips, the human representative, was sitting in an emergency session trying to explain the situation. The humans are mobilizing their entire fleet, complained Ambassador Zithkar of the Rigelian Trade Federation. This is a massive overreaction to a minor border dispute. John looked around the council chamber at the worried faces of dozens of different species. This is not a minor border dispute. A human vessel is under attack while protecting civilian refugees. Our response is completely appropriate. But you're sending hundreds of ships, protested Ambassador Velinara of the Andromedan Alliance. The Zephyrians only have 3 vessels in the area. The number of enemy ships is irrelevant, John replied calmly. Our people are in danger while performing a humanitarian mission. We will respond with whatever force is necessary to protect them. The council members looked at each other nervously. Most galactic species had small, defensive fleets that rarely operated far from their home systems. The idea of mobilizing an entire military force to rescue one ship was completely foreign to them. Surely this is excessive, said Ambassador Krelnosk of the Cygnus Republic. Could you not send just a few ships to assist? John stood up and looked directly at the alien diplomat. Let me explain something about humans. We don't abandon our people. We don't calculate the cost of rescue. Operations. When someone needs help, especially when they're helping others, we respond with everything we have. The ambassador from the Galactic Council's peacekeeping force, a tall insectoid named Hive-Tar, clicked his mandibles nervously. But this could escalate into a major conflict. The Zephyrians have allies throughout the sector, and those allies should convince the Zephyrians to stop attacking civilian targets, John replied. We didn't start this fight, but we will finish it. Back in the Epsilon sector, the battle was going badly for the USS Liberty. The ship's shields were down to 20%, and several systems were failing. Lieutenant Commander Morrison was doing his best to keep his ship between the Zephyrian vessels and the remaining Catherian escape pods. Sir, we're receiving a message from the lead Zephyrian ship, reported Communications Officer Lisa Grant. Put it through, Jake ordered. Fleet Commander Krex's voice filled the bridge. Human Captain, you have fought bravely, but you are defeated. Surrender now, and we will allow you to evacuate your crew. Jake looked at his tactical display. The Catherian escape pods were still within range of the enemy weapons. If he surrendered, nothing would stop the Zephyrians from destroying them. Negative, he replied. USS Liberty will continue to protect civilian targets. Then you will die for nothing, Krex said angrily. Maybe, Jake answered. But we won't die alone. Help is coming. He was right. At that moment, the first wave of human reinforcements was already racing through hyperspace toward the battle zone. Admiral Sullivan's Third Fleet would arrive in less than 18 hours, followed by wave after wave of human ships. The Zephyrians had made a fatal mistake. They had attacked a human vessel while it was protecting innocent civilians. Now they were about to learn what happened when an entire species decided to respond to such an act. The galaxy was about to discover that humans didn't just come from a dangerous world. They had chosen to become its guardians, and they would fight anyone who threatened innocent lives. The real battle was just beginning. The first wave of human ships arrived like thunder in the darkness of space. Admiral Kate Sullivan's Third Fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their engines creating brilliant streaks of light against the black void. 12 heavy cruisers appeared first, followed by 36 destroyers and 48 escort vessels. The Zephyrian forces suddenly found themselves looking at 96 human warships. Fleet Commander Krex stood frozen on the bridge of the Talons, Edge watching his tactical display fill with enemy contacts. His 3 battle cruisers had been dominating the fight against the lone USS Liberty, but now they were outnumbered 32-1. Sir, we're receiving a communication from the human fleet, his communications officer reported, his voice shaking. Put it through, Krex ordered, trying to keep his own voice steady. The main screen showed the bridge of a massive human dreadnought. Admiral Sullivan sat in the command chair, her gray hair pulled back and her blue eyes hard as steel. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency that made Krex's blood run cold. Zephyrian vessels. This is Admiral Sullivan of the Third Fleet. You will cease your attack on human and civilian targets immediately and prepare to be boarded. Krex found his voice. Admiral, this is a misunderstanding. We were responding to what we believed was a terrorist threat. The only threat I see is 3 warships attacking a humanitarian rescue operation, Sullivan replied. You have exactly 60 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender. You cannot be serious, Krex said. This is a massive overreaction to a minor incident. Admiral Sullivan's expression didn't change. 30 seconds. The Zephyrian commander looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. He had 2 choices: surrender to the humans or fight against impossible odds. We will not surrender to threats, he declared. All ships, prepare for combat. Admiral Sullivan nodded as if she had expected this response. Very well. All ships, you are authorized to engage. Disable enemy vessels with minimum casualties. What happened next wasn't really a battle. The human ships moved with coordination that seemed almost supernatural. They surrounded the 3 Zephyrian vessels and began targeting specific systems. With surgical precision, advanced targeting computers identified weapon emplacements, shield generators, and engine systems. The USS Constitution, Admiral Sullivan's flagship, moved to protect the damaged USS Liberty. Captain Maria Rodriguez ordered her ship to extend its shields around the smaller vessel, giving Lieutenant Commander Morrison's crew time to make emergency repairs. Liberty, this is Constitution. We have you covered. Focus on life support and getting your people to safety. Jake Morrison's voice came through the speakers, filled with relief. Constitution, this is Liberty. We have wounded and our main engine is offline. Request permission to transfer casualties to your medical bay. Permission granted. We're launching rescue shuttles now. The rescue operation began immediately. Human. Medical teams rushed to help the wounded crew of the USS Liberty, while other ships collected the surviving Catherian refugees from their escape pods. The humans worked with efficiency that amazed the aliens they were saving. Dr. Patricia Webb, the chief medical officer of the Constitution, took charge of treating the wounded. She had trained for exactly this kind of situation, and her team was equipped with the most advanced medical technology in known space. "Get these people to Surgical Bay 1, she ordered as Catherian survivors were brought aboard. "And someone find me a xenobiology specialist. I need to understand their physiology before I can treat them properly." Captain Vel Tar, a Catherian mining captain, was among the survivors. He had been badly injured when his ship was destroyed, but he was conscious enough to speak when Dr. Webb examined him. "Thank you," he whispered in accented standard. "You saved us all. That's what we do." Dr. Webb replied simply, "Just rest now. You're safe." Meanwhile, the human fleet was systematically disabling the Zephyrian ships. The advanced human weapons could target individual systems without destroying the entire vessel. They knocked out the enemy's weapons, disabled their engines, and shut down their shields while leaving life support intact. The battle, if it could be called that, was over. In less than 10 minutes, the 3 Zephyrian vessels drifted helplessly in space, their crews alive but completely unable to fight or flee. But this was only the beginning. Every 6 hours, another human fleet arrived in the sector. Admiral Tom Brady's 7th Fleet appeared. Next, bringing 24 ships specialized for rapid strike operations. The crews were experts in boarding actions and close quarters combat. "Admiral Sullivan, this is Admiral Brady. We're ready to secure the enemy vessels." "Proceed with boarding operations," Sullivan replied. "Priority is prisoner processing and evidence collection." The boarding parties were led by Major Chris Lang, a veteran of several peacekeeping operations. His Marines moved through the Zephyrian ships with practiced skill, securing the crew and searching for evidence of what had started the conflict. "Sir, we found something interesting," reported Sergeant Amy Foster from the Talon's Edge. "The Zephyrians have a damaged communication intercept in their files. It looks like they misunderstood a Catherian mining report." Major Lang examined the evidence. "So this whole thing started because they couldn't read a simple message correctly?" "Looks that way, sir." They thought the Catherians were planning some kind of military operation. The Major shook his head. 3 ships destroyed, dozens of casualties, and an entire fleet deployment because someone couldn't understand a mining report. Admiral Sam Parker's Advanced Warfare Division arrived next, bringing 6 experimental vessels with weapon systems. That made the Zephyrian sensors screen warnings they couldn't understand. The ships looked different from standard human designs, with unusual hull configurations and energy signatures that didn't match anything in galactic databases. Captain Dan Walsh of the experimental ship USS Defiant contacted Admiral Sullivan. "Admiral, we're detecting more Zephyrian ships approaching from the outer system. It looks like reinforcements." "How many?" Sullivan asked. 12 ships, including what appears to be a fleet carrier. "They'll be here in 6 hours." Admiral Sullivan smiled grimly. "Then we'll be ready for them. Signal all ships to maintain position and prepare for additional combat operations." The Galactic Council's monitoring stations were recording everything, and the reports they were sending back to their governments were causing panic throughout known space. Species that had never seen human military operations in action were suddenly realizing that they had seriously underestimated Earth's children. Ambassador John Phillips received an emergency communication from the Council requesting immediate clarification of human intentions. "Ambassador Phillips, the human fleet continues to grow in the Epsilon sector. How many ships are you deploying?" John consulted his tactical reports. "Currently, we have approximately 120 vessels on station, with more arriving." Every few hours. This is madness, protested Ambassador Zethkar. You're deploying an entire invasion force for one patrol ship. We're deploying appropriate force to protect our people and innocent civilians, John replied calmly. The Zephyrians chose to escalate this situation. We're simply responding. But surely this is enough, said Ambassador Valinara. The immediate threat has been neutralized. John looked at the worried faces of the alien diplomats. The threat will be neutralized when every hostile ship in the sector has been dealt with and the civilians are safe. Until then, we will continue to respond with whatever force is necessary. The aliens exchanged nervous glances. They were beginning to understand that humanity operated by different rules than the rest of the galaxy. When humans said they would protect innocent lives, they meant it completely, and they were about to learn that an entire human fleet was just the beginning. The Zephyrian reinforcements arrived, expecting to find their 3 battle cruisers victorious over a single human patrol ship. Instead, they dropped out of hyperspace to face the largest human fleet ever assembled in one location. Admiral Grector, commanding the Zephyrian task force from the carrier Blood Moon, stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Tactical, how many human ships are we reading? He asked his weapons officer. Sir, I count 147 vessels. Multiple heavy cruisers, destroyers, and ships of unknown classification. They have us surrounded before we even knew they were there. Admiral Grector had been a military commander for 20 years, and he had never seen anything like this. The human ships were positioned in perfect formation, creating overlapping fields of fire that covered every possible escape route. Their coordination was flawless, as if controlled by a single mind. Signal the human fleet, he ordered. Request immediate communication with their commander. The main screen showed Admiral Sullivan's bridge. She looked calm and professional, but her eyes were hard as diamond. Behind her, the human crew worked with quiet efficiency that made the Zephyrian officers nervous. Zephyrian fleet, this is Admiral Sullivan. You will power down your weapons immediately and prepare for inspection. Admiral Grector tried to maintain his dignity. Admiral, I am here to rescue my ships and crews. Surely we can discuss this situation like civilized beings. Your ships attacked civilian refugees and a humanitarian rescue operation, Sullivan replied coldly. There is nothing to discuss. You will surrender or be destroyed. You cannot be serious about fighting our entire task force over a few mining ships. Admiral Sullivan's expression didn't change. We are completely serious about protecting innocent lives. You have 60 seconds to comply. The Zephyrian admiral looked around his bridge. His officers were waiting for orders, but they all knew the situation was hopeless. The humans had more ships, better positioning, and technology that seemed almost magical in its precision. All ships, power down weapons and prepare for boarding, he ordered reluctantly. What followed was the most efficient military operation the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human boarding teams moved through the Zephyrian. Ships with practiced skill, securing crew members and taking control of all systems. The operation was so smooth that it looked more like a training exercise than a real battle. Lieutenant, Commander Amy Foster led the boarding team onto the Blood Moon. She moved through the corridors with her Marines, checking each compartment and securing prisoners. The Zephyrians offered no resistance, clearly understanding that fighting was useless. Captain Rodriguez, this is Foster, she reported over her communicator. The carrier is secure. We found evidence of military communications discussing plans to expand their attack to other Catherian facilities. Captain Maria Rodriguez of the USS Constitution reviewed the intelligence reports. It looks like they were planning to attack multiple civilian targets. This wasn't just about one mining ship. The boarding teams found something else that shocked the human officers. The Zephyrian ships carried detailed maps of civilian settlements throughout the sector. with specific targeting information for schools, hospitals, and refugee centers. Major Chris Lane examined the battle plans on the Blood Moon's main computer. "These aren't military targets," he told Admiral Sullivan over the communication link. "They were planning to attack purely civilian installations." Admiral Sullivan's face grew even harder. "Collect all evidence and prepare detailed reports. The Galactic Council needs to see exactly what we stopped here." Meanwhile, the rescue operation continued. Human medical ships were treating wounded from both sides with equal care. Dr. Patricia Webb had set up a temporary hospital aboard the Constitution, where human and alien medical teams worked together to save lives. Captain Veltar, the Catherian mining captain, was recovering in one of the medical bays. His injuries were healing, thanks to human regenerative technology that seemed almost miraculous to other species. "Doctor, why are you helping us?" he asked Dr. Webb during one of her visits. "We are not your people." Dr. Webb checked his medical readouts before answering. "Because that's what humans do. We help people who need help. It doesn't matter what species they are. But you risked your entire fleet for a few miners." "We risked our fleet to protect innocent lives," she corrected gently. "That's always worth the risk." The arrival of Admiral Lisa Hayes with the First Fleet brought the human force to over 200 ships. Her flagship, the massive dreadnought USS Defender, took position at the center of the formation. Admiral Hayes called a meeting of all senior commanders to coordinate the next phase of operations. "The immediate threat has been neutralized," she announced to the assembled officers. "But we need to establish a security perimeter around the entire sector until we can complete our investigation." Captain Nicole Stevens of the hospital ship USS Mercy reported on the civilian casualties. "We've rescued 43 Catherian survivors and treated 37 wounded. The human medical technology has impressed the alien doctors we're working with." Dr. Kevin Moore, the chief surgeon, added his observations. "The Catherians are amazed by our regenerative treatments. We're healing injuries they considered permanent disabilities." Admiral Hayes nodded. "Good work, everyone. But we're not done yet. Intelligence reports suggest the Zephyrians have allies who might try to interfere with our operations." She was right. The Galactic Council had sent a peacekeeping fleet to mediate the situation, but they arrived to find that the humans had already restored order. Ambassador Jenny Clark, serving as the diplomatic liaison, met with the Council's representatives aboard their flagship. "The situation is under control," she informed Council Admiral Hive Tar. "Human forces have secured all hostile vessels and are providing medical assistance to casualties from both sides." The insectoid admiral clicked his mandibles nervously. "But surely this massive deployment is excessive for such a small incident." Jenny looked at him calmly. "Small incident? The Zephyrians attacked civilian refugees and planned to destroy schools and hospitals throughout the sector. We consider that a major threat. The humans have completely taken over an entire sector of space," protested Admiral Zeth Mar of the Regellian forces. "This could be seen as an invasion." "We're protecting civilians and maintaining peace," Jenny replied firmly. "When the Galactic Council can guarantee the safety of innocent people, we'll be happy to withdraw." Back on the USS Defender, Admiral Hayes was reviewing intelligence reports when her aide brought disturbing news. "Admiral, we're detecting ship movements in 3 adjacent sectors. It looks like several species are mobilizing their fleets in response to our presence here." Hayes studied the tactical displays. "How many ships?" "At least 50 vessels from 6 different species. They claim they're coming to restore galactic law and order." Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. "Then they're about to learn what happens when you threaten human operations. Signal all fleet commanders. We're expanding our security perimeter." The galaxy was beginning to understand the humans didn't just come from a dangerous world. They had learned its lessons well. When they said they would protect innocent lives, they meant it completely. And they had the strength to make good on their promises. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy was wise enough to accept human protection or foolish enough to challenge it. The answer would determine the future of interstellar relations for generations to come. The Galactic Assembly Hall had never been so crowded. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the massive chamber, all talking at once about the human fleet that now controlled an entire sector of space. The noise was deafening until the council speaker activated the silence field. "Order, order," called Speaker Zalthirin, his multiple arms waving for attention. "We are here to address the unprecedented military action taken by the human forces in the Epsilon sector." Ambassador John Phillips sat calmly in the human delegation section, watching the chaos around him. Behind him sat Captain Steve Johnson of the exploration vessel USS Discovery, who had been called to provide expert testimony about human capabilities. "The humans have violated every principle of galactic law," declared Ambassador Krolmausk of the Cygnus Republic. "They deployed massive military force without council authorization. They attacked our allies without provocation," added Ambassador Zethkar of the Regelian Trade Federation. "This is an act of war against the entire galactic community." Speaker Zalthiron looked toward the human delegation. "Ambassador Phillips, how do you respond to these accusations?" John stood up slowly and looked around the chamber at hundreds of alien faces. "We respond by asking a simple question. How many civilian casualties did we cause?" The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Velinara of the Andromedan Alliance was the first to speak. "That is not the point. You cannot deploy military force whenever you choose." "You didn't answer the question," John replied. "How many innocent people did human forces kill or injure during our operations?" The aliens looked at each other uncomfortably. Finally, Ambassador Hive-Tar of the Peacekeeping Force answered. "According to our reports, human forces caused 0 civilian casualties." "And how many civilians did we save?" John continued. 43 Catherian survivors were rescued," Hive-Tar admitted reluctantly. John nodded. "And how many Zephyrian military personnel did we kill?" 0, came the quiet answer. The human ambassador looked around the chamber again. "So let me understand this correctly. You are upset because we saved innocent lives without killing anyone. Is that an accurate summary of your concerns?" The silence stretched for several minutes before Speaker Zalthirin spoke again. "The issue is not your actions, Ambassador Phillips. The issue is the scale of your response. Over 200 warships for a minor border incident?" Captain Johnson stood up at John's gesture. "If I may address that question, Speaker Zalthirin." "You may proceed, Captain." Steve activated a holographic display that showed Earth rotating slowly in the center of the chamber. "This is our homeworld. Perhaps it's time you understood exactly where humans come from." The display zoomed in to show Earth's surface. The assembled aliens watched as the hologram showed massive storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and weather, patterns that would kill most galactic species within hours. "Earth's gravity is 3 times galactic standard," Steve explained calmly. "Our atmosphere contains oxygen levels that are poisonous to 70% of known species. Our weather includes phenomena that your people classify as natural disasters." The display showed human cities built to withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods. It showed humans working in conditions that would be considered uninhabitable by most species. Every human child grows up adapting to conditions that would kill. "Most of you," Steve continued, "we consider this normal. We consider it home." Ambassador Krolmausk spoke nervously. "But what does this have to do with your military response?" Steve smiled slightly. Everything. You see, when you grow up on a world that constantly tries to kill you, you develop certain survival traits. We work together because we have to. We protect each other because no one else can. We respond to threats quickly because hesitation means death. The hologram changed to show human military exercises. The aliens watched ships moving in perfect coordination, troops working together with clockwork precision, and rescue operations that saved lives under impossible conditions. Our military doctrine reflects our origins, Steve explained. When someone is in danger, especially when they're protecting others, we respond with everything we have. We don't calculate the cost. We don't worry about politics. We act, Admiral. Lisa Hayes appeared on the communication screen from her flagship. If I may add something, Captain Johnson. Please proceed, Admiral. Lisa looked directly at the assembled aliens. You want to know why we deployed 200 ships? Because that's how many we needed to ensure complete success. Human military planning doesn't accept acceptable losses. We plan for 0 casualties, an overwhelming victory. Ambassador Zethkar stood up angrily. This is exactly the problem. You cannot simply decide to overwhelm anyone who opposes you. We didn't overwhelm anyone who opposed us, Lisa replied calmly. We overwhelmed anyone who threatened innocent civilians. There's a difference. Captain Veltar, the Kitherian mining. Captain stood up slowly in the witness section. His injuries were still healing, but he insisted on speaking for himself. If I may address the assembly, he said in his accented standard. Speaker Zal Thurin nodded. You may proceed, Captain Veltar. The Kitherian looked around the chamber at the hundreds of species represented. Before the humans arrived, my people, we're dying. Our ship was destroyed, our crew was scattered in escape pods, and the Zephyrians were hunting us down one by one. His voice grew stronger as he continued. The humans didn't know us. We had only met them once during trade negotiations. But when they heard our distress call, they came. Not just one ship, but their entire fleet. Captain Veltar paused and looked directly at Ambassador Krelnosk. You ask why they sent so many ships. I ask why no one else sent any. The chamber fell completely silent. The Kitherian's words hit their target perfectly. The Galactic Council received the same distress signals we sent, Veltar continued. Your monitoring stations recorded our emergency transmissions. But you did nothing. You filed reports and held meetings while my people died. He turned to face Ambassador Phillips. The humans acted. They risked their lives for strangers. They deployed their fleet not to conquer, but to save, and they succeeded. Speaker Zal Thurin looked uncomfortable. Captain Veltar, surely you understand our concerns about human military capabilities. I understand that without those capabilities, I would be dead, Veltar replied simply. My crew would be dead. Our children would be orphans. Instead, we are alive because the humans chose to protect us. Ambassador John Phillips stood up again. The Assembly wants to know about human intentions. Our intentions are simple. We will protect innocent life wherever we find it. We will respond to distress calls regardless of species or politics. We will use whatever force is necessary to ensure the safety of civilian populations. He paused and looked around the chamber. If that frightens you, perhaps you should ask yourselves why. The vote on the human actions was unanimous. The Galactic Assembly officially recognized the human response as a legitimate humanitarian operation. More importantly, they established new protocols for rapid response to civilian emergencies, with Earth's fleet designated as the primary rescue force for situations requiring immediate action. As the Assembly session ended, Captain Steve Johnson received a priority message from the Outer Rim. An unknown species had been monitoring the events in the Epsilon sector and wanted to establish contact with humanity. The message was simple. We have been watching. We are impressed. We would like to meet the guardians of the Deathworld. Captain Johnson smiled as he forwarded the message to Earth Command. The galaxy was learning that humans didn't just come from a dangerous world. They had chosen to become its protectors, and they would extend that protection to anyone who needed it. The age of human guardianship had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.